I don't want a second Muslim mayor of London. There, I have said it. I have outlined my position robustly on X as well after Nigel Farage announced the practicing Muslim Laila Cunningham will be Reform UK's candidate to run against London's failed Islamist Mayor Sadiq Khan at the next election. So, not surprisingly, I have been accused of all sorts today, especially, disappointingly, from some of those in the Conservative movement. But to think that embracing Islamism on the right is the only way to save London from an Islamist takeover, from the Islamist Khan, well, to me, that is deeply depressing. And I don't even think this should be a controversial position on the British right. It's also not to say that Laila Cunningham herself doesn't make some brilliant points when she appears regularly on GB News, but she has also never been asked once on GB News about the impact of her faith on politics. So I just want to be very clear on my position. We are a Christian country. We need a Christian in charge of the capital to save it from the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, to save it from the out-of-control crime driven by illegals, to save it from the mosques of East London, which are radicalising British-born innocents to become women-hating, gay-hating, Western-hating suicide bombers. And that is no exaggeration, by the way. For those on the Conservative right in the UK criticising me today, I want to ask, do you also criticise American Conservative figures, including Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk, the late Charlie Kirk, for taking the exact same position? Watch.
Dare I also say, a radical cultural orthodoxy that is going to be introduced into America's largest city. One that will not make it a safe place for Jews, not a safe place increasingly, I think, for Western values and potentially Christians. And to say that you are in favor of boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning Israel in America's most Jewish city, and it's just a coincidence that that guy happens to be Muslim, yeah, I think that's complete rubbish. And final point I'll say is this, is that London is a captured city. I don't know if you've been there recently, Megyn, but it is a husk of its former self. It is terrible. And I don't like the fact that I go to Piccadilly Square and I see more Arabic than I see English, that I see more stores that are Yemen, Omani, Saudi Arabian. That is a conquered and a captured country. And Mamdani has to run on his own merits. He's his own individual person. But he has not given any indication that he is anything but a radical socialist and someone that is trying to continue the Mohammedan march in the West. Individual Muslims can be great members of American society. We all know them. But in the macro, in the big picture, are we really benefiting the more that we are importing Islamists into the West? I say no, and I think we should have a lot of caution making a Muslim socialist the mayor of America's largest city.
I do have a problem with Islam. I do. I think it's totally incompatible with Western values, and I don't think people who practice Islam should be the leaders of America. I just don't. That's how I feel, and I'm entitled to that belief. Because Islam is more than a religion. It is a political ideology. I mean, Islam, people sometimes couch it as political Islam. All of Islam is political Islam. That's the truth. And we can't be afraid to say it. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just not consistent with Western values. It's not. They're not pro-free speech. They're not pro-women. And they're not pro-separation of church and state, like we in America are. We view the interference of religion in governance much, much differently than your average Muslim does, even your non-radicalized Muslim. That's what's true.
Very sensible, right? From Megyn Kelly, my good friend in the US independent media. But apparently, sharing that position makes you an extremist racist here in the UK. And in a sign of how they intend to fully embrace rather than fight Islam, with Zia Youssef, I believe, being lined up as the UK's first Muslim Prime Minister, Nigel Farage deployed Reform UK's own Muslim candidate, Laila Cunningham, at a major press conference announcement this morning. Watch.
We need to get rid of Khan. We need a new mayor of London. And today's press conference is about launching our candidate to stand for mayor of London, but also the person that will be the face and the campaigning force around all 32 boroughs as we head in to those May the 7th elections. Laila Cunningham has already proven in her time with us as a party to be articulate, to be passionate, a mother, somebody who actually herself has had to effectively, in the absence of the police, act as a police officer herself in defence of her children. And she, from this moment on, will be the head of Reform UK London, our candidate for the mayor next year, but the face of our campaign as we fight a strong, vigorous campaign in all 32 London boroughs in the run-up to May the 7th.
As Nigel has said, today we are announcing that I'm standing to be the next Mayor of London. Now, I know that we're still 2.5 years away, but the election on May 7th is the first step. It's the first step to reclaiming our city. Now, these local elections, I tell everyone, will be a referendum on Sadiq Khan, on Labour's broken London. It's Londoners' chance to vote out every councillor who's propped him up and stayed silent while he's let our city down. From now until May, I will be spearheading our campaign, touring every borough, because for the first time in years, Londoners finally have a real alternative: reform.
And yes, I agree, Reform UK is an alternative to Labour. But with Cunningham as the mayoral candidate, is it really an alternative to the threat of Islamism, which is destroying London? The truth is, none of us know the extent to which Laila is committed to her faith, or whether her faith will influence any of her political decision-making if she were elected. As a Reform UK insider told me today, they're not supportive of Laila Cunningham, by the way, they sent me this picture. She used to be, their words, she used to be a former Guardian and DEI poster girl under her previous name of Layla Dupay. She was a huge One Nation Tory and prosecuted people for hate crimes. So I think there is a lot we don't know about Laila Cunningham. I'll come to what she has been asked about her faith in just a moment. But I asked her on the show today, she didn't accept the invitation because I need to find out. I need to find out what parts of Islam she accepts, how much she is driven by her faith. And not one question was asked at the Reform press conference today about the Islamist threat our capital faces. Indeed, it was just a bunch of the usual MSM journalists asking Farage about Trump taking over Greenland, as if that matters more than our own capital city. And a question about Tommy Robinson, of course. Watch.
Tommy Robinson said last night he plans to sue you for libel. Do you have any response to that, please?
Goody gumdrops. I look forward to it enormously. Thank you.
Just remember, if you're a Tommy Robinson supporter, that is how Reform UK feels about you. Reform UK did finally acknowledge the destruction of lifting the two-child benefit cap today, which is all about encouraging an Islam takeover of our population.
On the two-child cap, look, I regret that my comments have been so willfully misinterpreted. I tried to say something that was pro-family, which I know hasn't been heard from any party in decades. I was trying to be pro-family, pro-children, pro-working people who find it very, very hard to pay for childcare. It's a disincentive for them to have children and to go to work at the same time. So look, I think the way this government is doing it, well, looking at some of the stats, it's going to start to benefit huge numbers of foreign-born people. And that goes back to this point. We have to prioritise British-born people, whether it's for child benefit or whether it's for social housing. And so I think when it comes, we will vote against it.
I mean, of course. But your people, Nigel, like Isabel Oakeshott, were attacking us just a few weeks ago for saying exactly that. Predictably, The Guardian today did manage to slip in a question to Laila Cunningham about London's diversity watch. Okay, half of you watching this are not subscribed to Dan Wootton Outspoken, and the best way you can support what we do is by hitting that subscribe button. It is completely free, and turn on the notification bell to be alerted to our new episodes.
London is considered to be one of the most diverse and successfully multicultural cities in the world. Do you think it's too diverse?
Do you want to have a go at that?
Yeah, so of course it's the most diverse. My parents came here in the 60s from Egypt. It's not about diversity. What I find is, so when my parents came in the 60s, immigration was in the tens of thousands, and when it's so little, you have to integrate, right? Even if you don't want to, but my parents did. But what you found in certain parts of London is that immigration is too much, and when it's too many, they dominate. And you do have certain parts of London where people who were born in that area, grew up there, do not feel it's their part anymore. It doesn't feel like London. And that is a problem. But in terms of diversity, no, it's great, it's diverse, we're doing well, but we have to all operate under the umbrella that it is a British city and it's a British country. And people that come to London have to embrace British culture. You don't come to London expecting London to change for you. And I find that some people come, expect it to change for them, and when it doesn't change for them, they say we're racist. There's absolutely nothing racist about that. It's called patriotism. And if you come here, you've got to be on board with that.
Now, there were things there that Laila said that I completely agree with. But notice when mentioning the issues of integration, she didn't specifically refer to Islam. She mentions folk not rightly recognising London anymore. So what is Laila's ideal vision of London?
When I was growing up, London was the place to live, the place to work, the place to build a life. People envied those that lived here. Now they pity us. They say, ooh, London's a bit too dangerous for me. People were proud to say they were Londoners. We said it with warmth, with belonging. Sadly, today I speak to so many people who are leaving. So many families who are moving out because they fear for their kids, because their kids have repeatedly been mugged, targeted. To businesses who are shutting down because they can't afford the shoplifting. Investors who are going elsewhere. Sadly, our young people that I speak to no longer dream of moving to London. They're scared of it. They see young men are stabbed for their watches or jackets in broad daylight. That's not normal. But we're told to accept it. But for me, it will never, ever be acceptable. Now imagine the reverse. Imagine London safe again. Imagine pride again. Imagine the capital city of the United Kingdom, restored to its former glory, strong, confident, prosperous, and secure. This is the London I believe in, and that is the London I will fight for. A London where our flag will be flown proudly across the city as a symbol of unity, belonging, and as a symbol of our British pride.
But how are you going to do that? If you are going to do that, you will have to drive out Islam. You will have to shut down the mosques, raising young terrorists. You will have to evict the illegal migrants. You will have to end the rape gangs. My question is whether another Muslim can do that, and I have my doubts. Certainly there is much we don't know about Laila. Rightly, she does blame London's downfall, though, on that stone-cold loser, Sadiq Khan.
I love this city with all my heart. But unlike some in this room, I'm not blind to what it's become. London, one of the greatest cities on earth, is no longer safe. And that didn't happen by accident. That happened on Sadiq Khan's watch. Let's just go through some stats. Knife crime in London is up 68% since 2016. Robbery is up by more than 50% during that same period. More than 100 phones are stolen every single year, and that's just those we know about. We are living, ladies and gentlemen, through a rape epidemic. This is the London that Sadiq Khan has created. A city where criminals operate freely, where victims are sacrificed, ignored. People are scared. And Khan thinks it's enough to tweet platitudes, random stats. Because let's face it, Khan never accepts responsibility. No, he attacks anyone who says London's dangerous. He calls them far rights, racist. He ludicrously says that criticism of his record is because he's Muslim, and we are all Islamophobic. Frankly, it's an insult to victims and to Londoners.
Laila says the choice between her and Khan will decide the future of London. But without a clear understanding of Laila's commitment to her Muslim faith, will we actually be voting for the final stage of the Islamist takeover?
The choice of Khan v Cunningham is a choice that you will make that will decide the future of London, the future of the best city in the world. So I tell you this, vote for the freedom that safety brings. Vote for reform. Thank you.
We know very little about Laila Cunningham, certainly very little about how much she is driven by her Muslim faith. Today, she has decided to appear on a YouTube show hosted by a big Labour backing loser, Harry Cole, the ex-political editor of The Sun, who has just 8,600 subscribers on YouTube, rather than accept my invitation to appear here on Outspoken. Now, Cole is an awful establishment shill, most famous in Westminster for previously shagging Boris Johnson's now wife, Carrie. That poor woman. Today, he had the temerity to describe me as a racist twat for voicing my concerns about Cunningham's selection. A post on X, by the way, now deleted because he knows that he will be humiliated in court attempting to prove that I am racist. As I told him, being Muslim is not a race, it is a religious identification. And I would also argue that the only twat is the bloke, Harry Cole, who forced his company to spend hundreds of thousands of bucks to launch a show called Harry Cole Saves the West, only to end up with less than 10,000 subscribers. Now, Harry Cole did eventually delete the post, but it does show you what we're up against. Even someone who claims to be on the right, despite endorsing Starmer for PM, doesn't understand that criticising Islam doesn't make you racist. There is no blasphemy law in the UK yet. And sure enough, he has just now posted that he has sat down with Laila Cunningham. She decided to go on a show watched by literally tens of people rather than come to us, the biggest independent daily news show in the United Kingdom, broadcast out of London every single day. And Harry Cole posted, "Cry more, Dan Wootton. Subscribe and see Laila Cunningham's brilliant response to Cracker's claims she's possibly an Islamist." And look, I will be watching. I know no one else will, but I will be, because I want to see how she answers that question. But perhaps what is most depressing to me in today's decision is that Reform UK had the perfect candidate in place, Ant Middleton. But they panicked after he aligned himself with Tommy Robinson.
The character of Ant Middleton, he's a very strong man, and that's what this country needs. It needs strong men, not weak men, and it needs principled men. So Ant Middleton, and if you look at what he said, he didn't speak about me having a perfect history. He spoke about my journalism of what he's watched and my investigations, and he said that it was important work.
But I have spoken to Ant Middleton today, and he is absolutely determined to continue his run as an independent candidate, even though some will say, look, it's going to split the Conservative vote with Reform UK, could even lead to Khan returning to finish London off altogether. He says to me, no, I am running, Dan. I'm getting big backing. He is determined to do this. Remember, this is what Ant told me at the Unite the Kingdom rally about his campaign.
You have made a big personal decision, right, Ant? Because, I mean, when I first knew you, you had a big showbiz career, things were going very nicely, huge big jobs in Australia. You sacrificed that by saying, I'm getting political and I'm going to be the next London mayor.
I didn't realise at the time how much it would affect my media career.
You've lost a lot?
I've lost a lot because I'm my own person, but They don't mix. You either go with one or the other, but
You're all in now?
All in. My purpose and my calling is to serve once again. I've served my country down, I've served my queen, God rest her soul, and I think it's time to serve my people. And I really, really mean that. The calling is too big for me to sit in my hands and live my nice life and, with my family. I've got to do something about it because I know that I can implement change, and my moral compass won't allow me not to give it a bloody good go.
And today, Ant Middleton hasn't directly referred to Laila Cunningham, but he has reaffirmed his commitment to run against Khan, posting, "Preservation of British cultural faith and traditions, along with the safety and security of London and Londoners, is an absolute priority for London for it to become once again the leading capital of the world. People visit London to see England at its finest, once the most respected, advanced, and most innovative country to ever exist. Let's get back to that, starting with our crown jewel of a capital." Now, compare that to Cunningham, who recently appeared with that wet wipe Andrew Gold watch. But first, have you ever actually looked at the nutrition label on a normal bag of crisps? You'll usually find a complete chemical cocktail, seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, vague natural flavours, and a list of ingredients that reads more like a science experiment than a snack. And then we wonder why we feel bloated, tired, and frankly a bit grim after we eat them. That's why I was so interested when I discovered Massa. They're part of this growing real food movement, bringing back the kind of food our grandparents ate before snacks started being made in labs. Now, Massa's tortilla chips contain just 3 ingredients: organic, nixtamalized corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's it. So no seed oils, no mystery chemicals, just real food. And here's the crucial bit. They don't just avoid all the rubbish, they actually taste incredible. Snacking on Massa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Massa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic. There's no crash, no bloat, no horrible sluggish feeling afterwards, because they're made with real food. They're more satisfying too. So you're not mindlessly inhaling half a family bag and still feeling hungry afterwards. And if you love Massa, you will also love their sister company, Vandy Crisps. You know how much I love crisps, but Vandy makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips. Proper flavour, proper crunch, without the garbage ingredient list. So ready to give Massa or Vandy a try? You can use the code Outspoken for 25% off your first order at massachips.com or vandycrisps.com. Or it might be easier, you can simply click the link in the video description box below or scan the QR code on screen to claim this delicious offer. And for our viewers in the United States, Massa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. So stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they're gone. But now, back to the show.
And that's the trouble I had with Shabana Mahmood, because she had one video where she said, everything I do stems from my religion. I don't know if you saw it or something like that.
Yes.
And that would worry me, because we're not a Muslim country. And I don't really want a Home Secretary whose decisions stem from her religion first and her nationality second. Because there can be a conflict of interest. I'm not part of a Muslim community. I'm part of a British community. I don't see myself different to any other British person. And if Muslims come here and want to do harm to our country, if they want to come and harm our girls, if they want to commit terrorist attacks, then they should not be allowed in this country, no matter where they're from. And if they're Muslims, of course, I'm going to call it out, because there are Muslim communities in this country who bring shame on the rest of the Muslims. Those girls that were raped by the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, they were raped because they were white and they were non-Muslim, and it's disgusting. And I'll never defend that. And it's got nothing to do with the religion. For me, religion is a source of good.
But it does have everything to do with religion. World by Wolf responded by saying, so Laila Cunningham says Muslims with intent to commit terrorism and rape shouldn't be allowed to come to Britain. But does she propose we vet them for that trait? It's impossible. The only option is a blanket ban on all Islamic immigration, which of course she will never advocate for. She then goes on to admit that the victims of rape gangs were chosen because they were white and non-Muslim, but then says the gangs had nothing to do with Islam before going on to say Islam is a force for good. Why is Reform promoting a woman who clearly wants more Islam in Britain and sees it as a positive thing? Laila then said this to Andrew Gold.
My parents moved here in the 60s to assimilate and to be
Egypt.
British. Yeah. They didn't move here for a quasi-Muslim country, you know? And I don't think a lot of Muslims do that. I mean, others go back, you know? This is not what people move here for.
This must be even more frustrating for you than it is for anyone else. This is
100%.
It makes you look bad as well.
100%.
World by Wolf again challenged her, writing, "The trouble with that is that all of the polls shows that Muslims do want Britain to become more Islamic, and they get more hardline through the generations. 40% want Sharia law. 52% want it to be illegal to depict Muhammad. 24% said 7/7 was justified. 40% supported bin Laden after 9/11. She then says that the behaviour of Muslims is even more frustrating for her than for most people. I assure you, as an Englishman who has watched his people be terrorised and raped on an industrial scale, that we are much more frustrated than you are, Laila. Clearly, Cunningham, like Zia Yusuf, is being used by the establishment to normalise multiculturalism." Now, interestingly, there are those on the right who think even though Reform UK clearly doesn't have the answers, that they are still the best way to break the two-party system. Watch this from Steve Laws on the YouTube show The State of Politics.
What do you think about Nigel Farage?
I see him as like the biggest disappointment. That's the only way to explain it, because he was my entry point into politics on the most part.
Interesting. Okay.
Like in terms of like, you know, when you start getting into, like, I've always sort of understood about immigration and stuff, but I wouldn't say I was politically active. But when like I'd watch like LBC and stuff like that with Nigel back in the day, or watch his UKIP speeches and so forth. And it's sort of like, he was sort of like the entry point, and it's like, so it's hard to sit here and say I despise him now and I think he's a piece of shit. But it's difficult to take that position, but he is. I don't think he's ever going to carry out what's necessary. He's got a Muslim as his chairman. That tells you everything you need to know. If he gets into, obviously we need him to get into power. We need Reform to win the next general election just to break the two-party system, and then we can have a free reign at real politics in this country. That's the hope from it. And then once Farage is in power, that's when everyone's got to attack him from the right ridiculously. Think how bad we attack now. We've got to double those efforts, and then some more, and to the point where Farage will be forced to either step down or implement what we want. Either way, there will be a hell of a lot of weight in terms of activism and potentially other parties breathing down his neck, because everyone's going to want a piece of that once the two-party system's broken.
Now, I see a lot of people in the live chat saying that Tommy Robinson supports Laila Cunningham. I did check in with Tommy earlier today, and he was absolutely unequivocal. He will be supporting Ant Middleton, not Laila Cunningham. On certain areas, by the way, I will say Nigel Farage, despite what Steve Laws might say, does continue to do brilliant work. Watch this.
The boats are still coming. The first one of the new year has arrived in Dover, and before long, Starmer will be the PM who's allowed more people to cross the English Channel than any other Prime Minister. Yes, they are Starmer's boats, but you think that's bad? Have a look at this story.
Migrants are posting brazen videos of themselves jumping on lorries to smuggle themselves into the country.
Clips, understood to have been filmed in northern France, demonstrate how best to hide before boarding a lorry in an attempt to enter the UK.
You see, only 40% of those that come illegally come by boat. The rest come in backs of lorries. The rest are overstayers. It's a joke. It's out of control. We've now got councils buying up property just to put illegal immigrants in, whilst other people from Britain go homeless. Only Reform will detain and deport anyone that comes illegally by whatever means.
And compare that to James O'Brien on LBC, who gaslights those of us who think there is a problem at all.
the average American doesn't want to have any military tension or war with Europe. Oh, no.
They don't care, James.
No, they do. That's why they've been pretending that we've got all sorts of problems with Muslims and immigrants and Sadiq Khan in London and all of the rest of it, designed to portray Europe as being in need of American intervention or American help, with Lord Haw-Haws and Lady Haw-Haws, from Farage to little Tommy Ten Names, all joining in, portraying their own country as something in a state of peril or something in a state of disarray or chaos, when obviously
Correct,
the opposite
James.
is true.
And if you add the support that they're putting behind reform in this country, the AfD in Germany, and all sorts of populist, right-wing, far-right parties across Europe, they have been putting us in this position on purpose. And we're coming to the end game.
Now, as I say, lots of people on the right disagreeing with my stance today. Tim Montgomery, Colin Brazier, who's here tomorrow, disagreeing. But interestingly, not Howard Cox. And why does Howard Cox matter? Howard Cox matters because he was the last Reform UK mayoral candidate. He's watching Outspoken right now and has just sent me this statement opposing the selection of Laila Cunningham for Reform UK. This from Howard Cox. I see GB News, Reform's propaganda channel, has focused on Farage's press conference today, launching the Muslim Laila Cunningham as their London mayoral candidate. It makes me so fucking angry about the way I was not supported when I was their candidate. God, I am delighted I left this regime and joined Advance. The way they treated Rupert, Ben, and Alex was a key reason I joined our Democratic Party. This early announcement of the London mayoral candidacy by the snake oil salesman shows his opportunism in seeking the 1.2 million Islamic votes in our capital. But her being female may not give Reform an easy ride. So, that reaction from Howard Cox, former mayoral candidate for Reform UK, now a member of Advance UK. Now, let me bring in the superstar panel. Leo Kurz and Kelly J. Keane with me. Kelly J, look, that is an interesting point from Howard Cox, is it not? It's all well and good saying you've got an Islamist candidate, or at least a Muslim candidate. She's apparently telling Harry Cole she's not an Islamist, and I'm more than happy to watch and see what she says. I'm sad that she didn't agree to come here tonight, Laila Cunningham. But doesn't Howard Cox make an interesting political point that this will probably backfire anyway, because most Muslims will not vote for a female candidate, let alone a female candidate running for Reform UK?
Yeah, I think that is a good point. However, I think in the discourse, I mean, we've got to get rid of Khan, right? He's a terrible human being, regardless of his religion. He's just a loathsome boil on the butt of humanity. So whatever it takes to get rid of him, I think is a good thing. And I think she does, by the fact that she's Muslim, she does manage to brush off some of the accusations of either being a racist or being an Islamophobe or the other things that little weasel will accuse people of. So, you know, I think in a political field, I think she's the right person. You know, I'm an activist, so it wouldn't necessarily be the right thing for me as an activist. But pragmatically, I think maybe she is the right candidate for Reform.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, Leo? Because now we have even people on the right throwing around that term racist. I mean, look, Harry Cole deleted his tweet, his post on X, because I would have been able to successfully sue him. He knows that. He knows that. There is no evidence I am racist because I am anything but racist. You know, why would Father Calvin Robinson, Based and Bougie, and so many others be regular guests here on Outspoken if I were racist? That makes absolutely no sense. But I find it incredibly depressing that figures on the right don't understand that we do have no blasphemy law here. Islam is not a race. I am able to criticize it, just like Megyn Kelly does in the US, just like Charlie Kirk does in the US. I don't mind that people are going to disagree with me, but I do have a right to say that I would prefer a Christian mayor of London.
Yeah, and it's daft to sort of to accuse somebody of racism when they criticize Islam, because Islam isn't a color. If you go to the
100%.
Balkans, if you go to Russia, you'll meet plenty of Muslims who are just as white as us. So it's not a race. I can understand why it gets sort of conflated with racism, because so many of the problems that we associate with Islam in this country, come from people who are brown. We don't get so many of the so many of the white Muslims emigrating here. But I mean, I think like Kelly was saying, the sort of the calculation of having a Muslim, a mixed race or Egyptian second generation migrant as the candidate, it's good optics, not just from the point of view of appealing to the electorate in London. You got to remember, now that Sadiq Khan and the leftists have gerrymandered the vote, they've brought in millions and millions of people from overseas who they know will vote for left-wing parties. They'll vote for candidates like Sadiq Khan. Now that that's happened, you can't just put up a candidate who's going to appeal to, Cockneys or, white Brits, even people like me who've moved from the provinces, the furthest reaches of this island to live in or around London. You can't just appeal to them. You've got to appeal to the electorate that's there. That's just the system that we've got now. So somebody like Ant Middleton would be, he'd be a tough candidate to get in, I think. Whereas somebody like Laila Cunningham, because she's got that background, and she's not, she can't be dismissed as anything. She can sort of get a wedge in there, and a lot of people will feel more comfortable voting for her, even though they sort of they agree with Farage. They're quite right wing. They'll feel more comfortable voting for a Muslim, voting for a woman, voting for a second generation migrant, and also having somebody who's got that background makes it easier for them to espouse more hardline policies. I mean, I think we saw this with Suella Braverman, with Priti Patel. Not that I'm saying, Priti Patel actually ended up actually implementing any particularly hardline policies. It was quite the opposite, in fact. I think a lot of the post-Brexit rush of the Boris wave was down to her. But yeah, she's really different from somebody like Mamdani, who's just a absolute flat-out self-admitted communist. You know what I mean? I mean, that's ludicrous. She's also very different from Sadiq Khan, who while he's more of a, I guess, centrist in this country, centrist politician, his background as a human rights lawyer, I don't have quite the opinion that other people have, but I don't trust him, and I don't trust his intent, and I don't know what he'd be saying if he was in a different situation, if he didn't have to also appeal to the whatever percentage of the city, the 33% that is white British. So yeah, I think she's actually a pretty good pick. And also, man, I got to say, I don't have a problem with. I'm staunchly against Islamism, and so is she. I'm against Sharia courts in the UK, and so is she. She's spoken out against both those things. She's not an Islamist in the sense of political Islam or Islam conquering and taking over. For her, it is, or it appears to just be a religion, a source of strength and community in her life. Which I wish more Muslims were like that. I wish they were all like that. I wish they all treated it like I think most Christians treat Christianity. Maybe we're at the point where Islam's going to have that sort of reformation and is going to become more like modern Christianity. But yeah, I got to say, I like her, and I like the fact that she's got a posh English accent. I don't really, I've been accused of being racist as well, but really I think we all know that we judge people on their accent. And if you've got a posh English accent, man, you can get away. With anything.
I would argue that people are being really naive about Islam. I really would. I mean, I want to show you these posts from Chris Davies of True Conservative Media, who says, Reform UK has made a fundamental error in nominating Laila Cunningham as their London mayoral candidate. Non-Muslims don't want another Muslim mayor, and the Muslim bloc will not vote for her. This is a lose-lose nomination that smacks of virtue signaling over strategy. And then someone replied, a pro-reform person replied to Chris Davies saying, she might be a Muslim, but at least she's a westernised Muslim who has views, ideas and policies aimed at vastly improving London for Londoners, unlike the Crescent who occupies the seat at present. Now, of course, absolutely, will Laila Cunningham be a better Muslim in charge of London than Sadiq Khan? Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that. But it was Chris Davies' reply that I agree with. Not a high bar to get over, to be fair. Islam is a crusading ideology, a way of life, not a religion. I don't buy the moderate Muslim shtick. And neither do I. Neither do I. And I have a lot of questions for Laila Cunningham and for Zia Yusuf about their Muslim faith that no one has asked them. And no one asked them because no one is prepared to take that risk of being accused of Islamophobia, or as Harry Cole accused me today, of racism. And we need to know. We need to know.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.